Hey guys, today I've got the Zowie GSR Mousepad. It is a new product by Zowie Gear that just came out, and it is a new cloth mousepad. And the big thing that differentiates this from other mousepads is their new rubber base that they have implemented, and I will go into that shortly. But first off, let's list off some specs. This is 480 millimeters wide by 400 millimeters tall. It's slightly bigger than a SteelSeries Quick Heavy in terms of length, if that gives you any kind of perspective. And throughout the video, I will be referencing the SteelSeries Quick because it is probably the most similar in terms of glide and experience, with a few differences, obviously. So if you see it, it's a very big mousepad. They also have a PSR edition, which is a smaller version for people that have smaller desktops that can't manage the space. But for me, I believe bigger is better, so I try to get the biggest model as possible. For a low-sense gamer like myself, this model suits me very well. I don't run off the edge very often. This is the box, by the way. I just kind of had it in the shot so you could see that it is a kind of cool looking box. It's minimal, but I digress. Anyway, so the mousepad is very big. For a low sense gamer, it is big enough for what most, I would say, like 99% of people. It's that big. It's big enough. The design has this kind of like blown up Zowie logo. It's kind of like a 3D pattern. But don't worry about that. It's still a 2D surface. There's no like weird bumps or anything where it kind of like looks like it's like kind of 3D, but it's kind of cool. They also have a Zowie logo imprinted in the center instead of like offset in the corner somewhere. This kind of makes it cool because if you flip the mouse pad over, it's the exact same design. So I mean, I typically flip mine over after like a side's worn off or something, or I'll just flip it over if like the glide feels weird on one side but not the other. But yeah, just kind of like one of those little things where you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. Because logos are typically on like the bottom right, and then when you flip it, it's like up there, and you're like, oh, it's upside down now. But again, it's not really a big deal. I just thought that was kind of neat. It is a blue surface. I'm not really big on blue, but I mean, it is what it is. It is a printed surface. In terms of cloth material, if you guys have used like a SteelSeries Quick team pad, not a normal Quick, a team-based pad where it has like a printed surface, the material is very similar in that regard. The normal Quick series actually uses a different material, which is it has a lot more friction compared to their team-based models, which is what I'm kind of referring to right now. In terms of glide and speed, I would say this mouse pad is like a 7 or an 8 out of 10. It's fast, but it's not like crazy fast like a plastic pad or like a GTF speed. But it is still pretty quick. It's not like a SteelSeries Quick, especially their heavy edition, where you're gliding across it and it's just super slow. Like if you've used the SteelSeries Quick, you'll know that it is a very control-based pad and it's just a very slow glide compared to most models, and a lot of people prefer that. They just like having that extra bit of control when they're swiping their mouse around. Me personally, I kind of prefer the speed pads. I really like the GTF speed. I really like plastic pads. My big thing about plastic pads is that they wear down. They get very uneven. The center starts wearing down more than the edges, and that just creates kind of like an inconsistent glide. So it makes them usable for like maybe a month or so before they start going bad for me personally. So I typically stick to a cloth pad, and I try to find ones that are on a speed-oriented side. This pad is kind of on the borderline for me. It's got a good amount of friction, but it's not like a crazy amount. But I don't know how to describe it. It's like a 7 out of 10 for me in terms of glide. I will say, though, in terms of consistency and how smooth it glides, there is nothing quite like it. And a lot of that has to do with this new rubber base that Zowie has put on. The difference between this base and a normal base is that the normal base that you see on like SteelSeries product or like any normal mouse pad for that matter, especially thicker ones, is that it has like the spongy rubberized base, and that's great and all, especially for economical purposes. But the problem with having a rubber base like that is that it creates this inconsistency because there's air bubbles, and when you have air bubbles, it becomes more. It has a lot more give when you press down on it, and because the air bubbles are so sporadic and so spread out and they're not uniform, it creates an inconsistency in the glide. And this isn't really a huge deal, but after using this pad, I have definitely noticed the difference between this and a normal cloth surface that I normally used. If you guys have watched my other videos, I actually use a normal XXL mouse pad by PC Master Race, and it's a great pad, don't get me wrong, but because it's using this spongy rubber base, you can definitely feel the difference between that and the Zowie GSR. The rubber base is just, it's incredible how much a base can change the way the glide works. It's a very premium feel, I've got to say. And it's a great product in terms of glide and consistency. There is nothing quite like it. I can't reiterate that enough. The only thing that I can see on this that I might change is that the sides are not stitched. And I don't know if this was any sort of limitation in budget or anything, but I really prefer having stitched edges on my mouse pads, and the reason why is obviously because of longevity. With cloth mouse pads, you typically run into frayed edges over time, and on really low budget mouse pads, those frayed edges can kind of peel up, and they can kind of, the little cloth threads themselves actually start peeling off. And that's not really a good thing. You don't want that. And while this can be a problem on a lot of mouse pads, I've had a bunch of Zowie mouse pads in the past. I've had a bunch of other mouse pads in the past, and for the most part, fraying has not been that much of an issue for me, other than just the edges starting to get fuzzy. I mean, it's really not that big of a deal. I just kind of prefer having that stitched edge, knowing that nothing's going to happen to this thing over time. And I really prefer having my mouse pads over a year or more. I typically go through mouse pads once a year. More if I really like the pad or if the pad's really holding up. But again, frayed edges, not really a big deal, but it's just something I would have added. It's a nice touch, and it really just adds to the premium feel of a product. If you guys are looking for a mouse pad that is cloth-based, that has a glide that you are unfamiliar with, but it is really consistent, you would really like this product. Especially if you've used like a team-based quick product, but you weren't really satisfied with it. This is probably the smoothest mouse pad I have ever used in terms of glide. A lot of hard pads, a lot of hard plastic pads can say the same thing, but the friction is different. It's because it has that cloth surface, that it has that kind of smoothness to it, but because the rubber base isn't spongy, it no longer has this like weird inconsistency to it. It's a very smooth pad. And I haven't used anything quite like it. So if you guys are in the market for a low sense giant mouse pad, I would definitely recommend checking this product out. There's really, I can't think of any other product that comes close to this in terms of smoothness. And if you're in the market for a new pad, I would definitely recommend checking this out. If you guys enjoyed this video, please subscribe. If you have any questions about the mouse pad or anything that you've seen or heard here today, you can write a message down below or message me personally, and I will get to you as soon as I can. But until then, I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I'll see you guys next time.